Hey guys, Yettibeats here. I forgot to let Ian from the Cinema in Seconds podcast promote his show. So, this episode is brought to you by the Cinema in Seconds podcast with hosts Ian and Daniel. They celebrate the small moments in great films. Listen to their best of 2022 episode out now on Apple, Spotify, and all your favorite podcast providers. All right, enjoy the show.
Welcome, everybody, to the Green Team of the Legendarium podcast. Today, you have the very special episode about movies, specifically sci-fi and fantasy movies from the year 2022. It's our second inaugural episode, and with me, I have Jingalls.
Hello.
And Ian from the Cinema on Seconds podcast. And so today we're going to talk about our top fives. And I thought we'd first start to check back at our top five from 2021 and to see if they held up.
Sounds good. I don't remember what my list was, so this will be interesting.
Lucky for you, Ian, I have it right here for us to criticize and judge full-heartedly. Although I don't think anyone's going to judge your first one. So I'll quickly with Ian's. Ian, you had Dune as your number one.
That checks. Yep.
The Green Knight as your number two. Feeling pretty good so far. Number three, you had Eternals.
I still stand for that movie. I love it.
I know. He still stands by it. Great.
I don't love it, but I do think it's highly underrated. Highly.
I was going to say, you stood by it in that episode. You were, number four, Spider-Man No Way Home.
Okay.
And the fifth one, The Matrix, whatever the fourth Matrix was called. Something with an R, I assume.
Oh, the Resurrections, yeah.
Yes. That's
right.
I
think that holds up pretty well. I'm trying to think of anything that would have jumped in there that I would have seen afterwards, but nothing's coming to mind, so. Yeah,
there you go.
That's good with that
there
list.
You have it. He's no shame. I like that list too. I even like Eternals. I said that before. I like that. It's not my favorite, but I wasn't like, I don't think it should have torpedoed the MCU, especially after some of the later Phase 4 ones we got.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, Jingles. So you weren't on the episode last year. So we're taking your word. This is your top five, and you did.
These were
So the best five movies.
One of these. So my number one was Dune. Number two was The Green Knight. Number three was The Suicide Squad.
Yes.
Number four was Encanto. And then number five was Malignant, but I'm kind of cheat here because I watched Last Night in Soho technically in 2022, but I think it was one of the best movies 2021. So
Last Night in Soho, that was really good. I agree.
Yeah, you watched that one after our episode, I think, Ian.
I did.
Yeah. I don't think you had watched it at that point. No. Not that I'm stalking your letterboxd or anything. No, that's a great five, Jingles, especially Malignant, which is you bring up a good thing, and I'll bring up my list. But for like this episode, we could include horror. I tried my personal, and there's no rule against this. I tried to keep it to like one horror, and even then, the one I picked is I think more than just a horror film. But I could make a list of like 5 horror movies. I watch so many, it's unfortunate. I need to stop. So, and there's a lot, and like that genre is one that just keeps churning out great films, despite the budgets, despite just Marvel or IP taking over films. I think horror is just a great genre that's been withstanding that. So
yeah, it's an area that holds its own for sure.
I agree. Yeah,
Malignant I think is ridiculous.
The line of fantasy and horror is always really oddly blurred, and I just like trying to get one of them on there to remind people this is a good genre to be watching, especially right now.
For sure. All right, so mine, I will say, the first one I had was Mitchell's vs. the Machines, and I have no qualms about that, my friends. I love that film. Too much, probably. What I do not feel great about is, as my number two was Spider-Man No Way Home. And if we're being candid, I've had no desire to rewatch that movie since, and I still don't.
You were on the hype train for that one.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was too. Like it was a fun movie at the time, and then as time separated, it maybe down a little bit.
It's just a great first watch experience if you're in a certain demographic who had a certain history with certain movies. And I'll never forget watching it in the theater. But once came down from that first watch high, I'm like, all right. I mean, I'll still probably get emotional at some scenes, but as a whole movie, I just look back at the rest of it, and I think there's a lot of nonsense in that film with Ned, with Doctor Strange. I don't understand why Tom Holland couldn't just talk to his college guidance counselors. I just don't get it. So to get to the point that I really liked, which was essentially the last 50 minutes, I don't think it's worth it.
It seems like the stakes didn't match the motivation. I will agree with you there.
Yes. Well put. Number 3, I had Dune. I think that's probably would be higher.
Low,
probably number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely too low. I haven't rewatched that either, but that's my fault. I have been wanting to. I just haven't had the time. Number 4, I had Old by M. Night Shyamalan. Also feel great about that. And I can't wait for his new movie coming out in a few months. I've read the book of what it's based on, and it's the most M. Night Shyamalan ending. It's a good pairing. So, which I think it's called like Knock Cabin at the End of the World or something. So I'm checking that out. And number 5, I had The Suicide Squad, which Ian loathed. He hadn't seen at the time, but I saw his Letterboxd review, and it was unkind.
I did not like it. It's too gross for me.
Yes. I feel like I've gotten since I've virtually started to know you, Ian, I think I have a little more of your taste now, where I don't think you're against, say, grossness or violence, but when it's done, when you think it's done for shock value or unnecessary, I think then you don't, because you love The Fly, right?
That's fair.
Right? Goldblum?
No, I'm not a big fan of that one either.
Oh, no, never mind. Well, maybe you just hate grossness.
It's fine. Could be. I mean, I love The Thing, and The Thing's pretty disgusting.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe that's what I was thinking of. Yeah. But anyway. All right. Should we get into our top 5 of this year?
Let's do it.
All right. Since you're the newbie, we'll let Jingalls go, and you can start us off.
All right. We decided we're starting at the bottom, right?
Yes, please. Oh, God.
Good. All right. So my first pick was Wendell and Wild, starring Keegan-Michael Key, Jordan Peele, Lyric Ross, and Angela Bassett, and directed by Henry Selick. I enjoyed this one quite a bit, if only because it's great to see Henry Selick back in the game. The story can sometimes get a little too convoluted. There's a lot going on, but the art style is just beautiful. And I think I was kind of just struggling with deciding if this was actually a movie that is intended for kids, a lot like, Coraline and Nightmare Before Christmas are. They obviously deal with a lot of dark and complex emotional issues. This one is a little bit more upfront with those things than Coraline or Nightmare Before Christmas is. But yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of fun to watch. And Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele as always play off each other wonderfully as Wendell and Wild, the two demons who are trying to get out of hell so that they can start a theme park. So
okay, I was gonna say you got to back up a little bit because I actually don't know much about this at all. So this is, if it's Selick, I'm assuming it's animation. Is it stop motion?
It is stop motion. Films, yeah. And I don't know. It's filmed somewhere in Oregon. I think that might just be because that's where he lives. I don't think it's attributed to Leica in any way. So,
and it was a straight to Netflix movie, so it came about maybe around Halloween or a little after. Right?
Yeah. It was the week before, I think.
So did it get lost in Netflix shuffle? Because I honestly, until you put it on your list, I had not really heard much about it at all.
Absolutely. I actually almost missed it myself. I didn't see any sort of advertisement for it.
Netflix.
It just kind of popped up because I tend to watch animation. So, it's
nice.
Something that showed in.
Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, he's got all of the classic Henry Selick features of his movies in there, and it's all very cartoony, but
is it musical too?
No, not musical. It's much more in line with just a straight story.
Save that thought for musicals. We'll be bringing that up later in another animated film. Yeah, I thought I heard a lot of mixed reviews, which is why I didn't watch it. But when you put it on your list, I'm like, okay, someone in the Discord really likes it. And I kind of did that with Eternals last year. Ian was like really adamant that it's not terrible. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go see this in theaters then. So I'm kind of glad you put that on your list because I like movies that don't always like. I love when I love a movie that everyone else seems to not like, or it's like get mixed review, or just even mixed reviews. That's not like universally loved. I get to defend this movie and just preach it, kind of like Jade City, maybe in the books. But no, so no, I'm now interested in it. And yeah, it's funny on Ian's podcast we talked about, or no, we didn't really, but your co-host Daniel brought up the other one Selleck directed, but said it was directed by Tim Burton. What was that?
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, Nightmare Before Christmas. And Ian got a lot of flack for
Elm
that.
Street. Oh my goodness. Yeah,
I almost said that. That's why I let you say it. I was going to say Nightmare on Elm Street. Had a brain fart. But yeah, and it's been a while since Selleck has directed anything. I was trying to think when the last one. So it's kind of like not long awaited, but he's obviously an anticipated director when he releases stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think this might only be like his third or fourth full length feature. And yeah, it's kind of a known quantity. Like if you've watched those other two and you've really enjoyed them, you're probably not going to see much wrong here.
All right, right on. Made your top 5. Ian, who slipped into your 5 spot?
Okay, number 5, I decided to go with the sequel, one of the sequels to the Predator franchise, which is a movie called Prey. And it saw it's interesting because it takes it back in time. So it takes it back to like the time around when North America was starting to be settled by the Europeans. And it puts it into the setting with Native Americans and it's neat. It's a neat little story and a neat way to bring a sequel into a franchise like this and make it fresh again, because this has kind of been a franchise that's floundered ever since the first one quite a bit. And this one is pretty solid. There was a lot of hype around it. I don't know that I'm fully on the hype train as far as hyperbole around. This is the best Predator movie ever. The first one is still the best, but this one's pretty up there, and it's a little bit derivative, but I liked it a lot. I liked the main character, and I liked the set pieces were really good. And there's this interesting thing they do with the Predator, which kind of matches the title of Predator and Prey, where he's like trying to find competition in for lack of a better word, and he's like hunting down all these different predators in the wild and kind of challenging them, and you kind of see him go up the ranks. Like he starts with like snakes and then wolves and a bear, and that's pretty cool. So, and Matthew, I know you're a big fan of this one too, I think.
Yeah, it's not on my list, but I love this movie when I watch it, and I feel like movies, everything, and books or TV shows, it's all about expectations. Like you said, the Predator franchise was floundering. After the last one, directed by Shane Black, I was like, I don't know. They're all kind of money. They're just IP. But like you said, it was such a fresh take, I'd say, and not just either in the setting or and just the way they world build. I felt like they focused too much on that in other ones, where like Alien vs Predator kind of expand this thing, where it's like there's just neat little ways that they expanded the world in this one with the new Predator we had. So yeah, but my biggest thing, you said it was Amber Midhunter, I think her name is, who's the main protagonist in the story. Yep. And she has a brother in this movie too, and I thought they were like phenomenal. I like, that's why I think this is the best one since the first one, because the first one, that one's, I mean, that has great set pieces too, but that's great because of the cast. I mean, that's great because it's fitting for the time. It's in the 80s with the Reagan era politics, and everyone's jacked, and you need action explosions, and you get the literally most juiced up dudes you can get, and you bring them down a peg. It's awesome to watch one by one. Kind of like you said that this Predator does, but he starts with, low animals. So it's a cool, different take. But in that one, he's just doing it to the biggest action heroes we know. So there's context
Right.
with that where we can relate to Carl Weathers as Apollo, Arnold's Arnold, Jesse Ventura as a wrestler. So we're like, I want to see these dudes have their fun. So this one was just a real cool switch, like you said, with Amber Midthunder, who's just a little small girl, but from some sort of, I don't want to get the nationality wrong, but sort of Native American tribe. But I really liked the twist, and I thought it looked, the cinematography was great, and just shooting some of the scenes like in the plains, because there's not as many places to hide like in the jungle. Having said that, some of the CGI's kind of trash, but I didn't really care. I mean, some of the animals, it's like, it's just a big CGI bear. You know what I mean? But
not the best looking bear.
how'd you like it, Jingalls?
It's further up my list, so I'll have a little bit more to say about it later, I guess. But
We'll say more later.
yeah, but I pretty much agree with everything that's been said so far.
Right on. Yeah, I'm ashamed it's not on my list. But
I'm surprised. I thought it would be.
So there's one movie. There's 4 on my list that were pretty set in stone, and then I had the 5th spot was kind of up for grabs, and I probably should have gave it to either Prey or one that's, very relevant and popular at the moment we're recording this and making a lot of money. But I went with one I can't stop thinking about, and I brought it up because I don't think a lot of people have seen. So it's called Duel, and it's on Hulu is where I saw it, and it's set in kind of like a present day, a world we resemble. I don't know what the science fiction term is that would be used for that, but it's like science fiction, but you recognize the world. And in this version of the world, if you get sick and are a terminal disease or something like that, you're going to die, you can apply to have yourself cloned, and that clone will learn all about you, looks exactly like you, and seamlessly fill in with either your boyfriend or your family or your girlfriend or spouse. And it helps them with the grieving process as if you never left, essentially. And they're still there and they continue their life for you. And in certain cases, like if you make a miraculous recovery from a terminal or what you thought was a terminal illness, and the clone has already been trained and it's been a year or so much, then you both have to have a duel to see which one is going to continue your life, essentially, since it's been so long, in very rare cases. And it stars Karen Gillan from Guardians of the Galaxy, who plays the blue one, Nebula. Yeah. And she plays obviously both herself and the clone. And I can't get her performance out of my head. Her character is kind of like this. She has no goals. She's kind of aimless. And it's weirdly a darkly funny movie in that sense, but it's also kind of depressing. And the fact that she has to fight this clone to survive, to live, when she really doesn't have any motivation to get off the couch and not drink wine when we previously see her, is kind of an interesting dynamic. And she's just really great as that character, and as the character, her clone who she plays, who is more motivated. Her family really likes the clone, and it's like, she's like, this person's way better than you've ever been to us. Like the boyfriend, it's kind of depressing. It's like weirdly depressing but darkly comedic. And there's Aaron Paul plays a minor character in it who puts his ads on Craigslist to train people for these duels, and he's just the cheapest option, but he's like super serious about it. And I thought it was fantastic. Again, low expectations. I'm like, well, I'll check it out right before the episode because I like these low budget sci-fi movies. And I'd implore everyone to watch it. I think it has a cool ending. I'm still a little torn on the ending, but it's definitely worth watching. And I don't want to give too much out. And I assume neither of you have seen it because I haven't heard anyone talk about this movie.
This is the first time I'm hearing of it. So,
premise sounds familiar. I remember hearing about the premise, but I wasn't connecting it to the title. I must have thought it was called something else, but I do remember hearing about what it's about, and it sounds interesting. Sure.
It
Lots
does.
of sociological implications that could come from it, I can see.
And I should say the title is spelled Dual, D-U-A-L, like dual abilities, but also could, they have a dual, in the movie. And I'm telling you, Karen Gillan, I know something like this would never get nominated. And particularly for like an Oscar, and I really usually hate the Oscars when it comes to women categories because I think they're awful the way they nominate them. Like Renee Zellweger won that one year for portraying someone, and they just like gave it to her in November, and no one else mattered the rest of the year. It's like, why are we just awarding this person the stat? You know, there's so many cool, like I don't know, female performances that it just sucks that these are the ones that get rewarded. And I'll say she's either the first or second best performance this year for someone who's also playing their twin sister in a movie. It's oddly specific, but if you've seen a popular Netflix movie, you would understand what I'm talking about. So anyway, yeah. So Duel is my number 5. Go check it out if you have Hulu. I think it's definitely worth watching, and you know, it's one of my favorite. Like, I love 3.5 out of 5 rating movies, and that's like prime. That's right there. It's right in that wheelhouse.
Cool.
Yeah, that's what I just. Karen Gillan continues to be like one of the best standouts of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and Avengers movies to me. So I have no doubt. And
Yeah,
even
she's got a
Doctor,
tough job in those movies.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's really exciting to hear that this exists. Definitely will check it out.
All right, Jingles. Let's talk about your 4th movie. It disturbs me. I can't get it out of my head. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's what. There was a little bit of a theme to those last 2 here, and it was mostly directors that I haven't seen movies from in a while that have come back and I think are in perfect form. So number 4 goes to Crimes of the Future, directed by David Cronenberg and starring Viggo Mortensen and Léa Seydoux. And I don't even really know how to correctly describe this movie. Basically, Viggo Mortensen is an aging artist who has a mutation in his body that allows him to develop organs. And then as he develops these organs, he then removes them for show, as an artistic show. And so the entire plot of this movie is kind of centered around human bodies are starting to adapt to a new environment where synthetic materials are becoming dominant. People are learning to consume them, and artistry is changing in just really weird ways. If you've ever watched Cronenberg, it is him in form. Very reminiscent of Videodrome or Scanners. I think probably actually, if you've ever seen it, the closest movie I'd compare this to is Existenz. But yeah, so I don't know. It's a very strange movie, and it just kind of has to be experienced, in my opinion. Just be aware that, yeah, it's going to be kind of brutal to watch some things in it, and you're going to get very confused.
Did you see this, Ian?
No, I was scared to see it. Cronenberg is, yeah. So we were talking at the beginning that I don't do so well with the gross out stuff, and yeah, I'm not sure that this would be a movie for me.
So I'll say, I think we mentioned The Fly earlier. It's like, oh yeah, The Fly is like tame Cronenberg. That's the.
Yeah, I like this movie. I feel like I have no idea what I watched after. I'd have to watch it 5 times to understand what Cronenberg's like. The themes were a lot. There's a lot because he puts on shows a lot. The Viggo Mortensen's character, kind of like Operations, and it's like weirdly. I don't know. Those movies like weirdly sexual with body parts. I don't know if that's.
Oh yeah, no, highly.
So I think there's a lot he's trying to say with. Just a lot of things, and I didn't get all of it. It was still entertaining. Like it definitely, like the world is definitely really cool that he created, and some of the just the sets, like the chairs that Viggo sits in, is like wild, like sucking on his body or something. And it's just like, it's not like a post-apocalyptic world, but it's like, it's just weird. I mean, I expected it from a Cronenberg movie, but I know Kristen Stewart, honestly. I don't know if I was attracted or horrified by that character.
She was fascinating to watch. I don't know. I think Cronenberg as a director very much falls into like that typical by the book auteur theory director. And so a lot of the stuff that I was getting out of Crimes of the Future very much had to do with everything that had come before it, and just kind of seeing the tapestry that he's laying out. The themes are very similar. He's very, very focused on the organic, which what makes a lot of his horror so horrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, even the chair that Mortensen's sitting in this, it doesn't make sense why anyone would design a chair this way. Like it looks like a I don't know, like a cocoon.
Yeah.
And it's just very strange. But yeah, and this is his first horror movie that he's done like this in a while. I think prior to this, he had mostly been doing more standard, I don't know, more realistic looking, stuff. So, yeah.
Well, I will say the sci-fi premise intrigues me. Like the transhumanism idea, I don't think is explored by at least film science fiction that often. And if anyone's going to do it, he's the guy to do it. So it does intrigue me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally glad he made these. Like, I'm just happy he's making these weird movies, you know?
Yeah. Maybe I'll decide I can stomach it one day and actually sit down and watch it.
It's not, I don't know. I don't think it's up there with like the top gross Cronenberg, but it's just weird. I don't know.
No.
I don't know what to tell you, yeah.
I would almost kind of put this one next to The Fly as kind of the more accessible.
Right.
Existenz is another one that's pretty accessible as well.
All right. So let's go to Ian's number 4. So I didn't see Wendell and Wild, and I haven't seen this one that Ian's going to talk about. So I'm interested why you picked it.
Yeah, so I picked 3,000 Years of Longing, which came from George Miller. This is his first movie since Mad Max Fury Road, and it's quite different. And it's about a genie, actually. It's a genie movie, which is pretty cool. It's Idris Elba plays like a classical genie coming from a bottle, and Tilton is the person who unleashes him, and she's like a modern day academic, and she studies stories. So the whole thing is basically a study of stories and storytelling, and we see that through the genie telling his own life story to her about all the different times that people have released him from the bottle and have had their 3 wishes. So you learn his story through these like 3 specific time periods. It's very classic genie story. Like it's got the whole 3 wishes. It's got the rubbing the lamp. It's got all those telltale signs that we know from like children's stories. But it's a modern spin on it, and it's got a lot of fantastical elements that just look cool. Like George Miller really goes out of his way to make it look really neat. And Idris Elba is awesome. Like he just puts his all into it, and you believe him as a genie. It's such a cool story. Like it goes back all the way to like ancient Babylon, and then you kind of see him throughout history, and falls in love with some people who release him from the lamp, and others he gets caught up in like political turmoil. It's a very cool movie. I don't think enough people saw it. I kind of came out as a bad time of year too, so I don't think that helped, but I really enjoyed it as a fantasy tale. Very neat.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was one I really wanted to see, but it was gone in like 2 weeks. So
yeah, which is unfortunate. Yeah.
I guess my question for you would be like, for me, Miller is very, like I know him for very practical effects and for very dangerous effects. This seems much more CG heavy. Is that true, or is he working?
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think there's a lot of practical elements to it, mostly in like the costuming and things like that, and the set design. I'm sure that's all practical. But there's things like, for example, when you first see the genie, he's huge, and so he takes up this entire apartment, and you just see like his foot sticking through a doorway. Like that's all CGI, I would think, and there's other little elements to it as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't feel. I tried to watch this before this episode because I tried to see them all before, but I'll be honest, I don't want to get excommunicated from this friendship, but not a big George Miller guy. Just even Mad Max Fury Road, it's fine.
Interesting.
Interesting.
This is a safe space, right? This is
Yeah.
So Jingles, should we just do our own thing now? Just cut him
I was
out.
about to say, he's
do the podcast
Yeti's
ourselves?
gotten out there. I can't tell what he's saying anymore.
It's gonna save it for the fantasy and hot take episode, but I mean, it's no. I mean, it's just one of those movies I respect more than like, because it's like you can't watch that movie and look at what he did, like you said, but the set, the stunts and everything like that, not be like that's insane. It's kind of like the French Connection, so you can't be like that's insane, you know. So yeah, for him, I was never even looking. I saw this and I was like, I have no interest to see that. And when it got bad reviews, I was like, I have no interest to see that. And then I saw Ian's Letterboxd review and he loved it. I'm like, oh, I have a little bit of interest to see that. So
Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, it's in somewhat in Yeti's defense. I do feel like a lot of the reason I was driven to wanting to see this movie so bad was because there's a lot of unknowns here for me. Like, yeah, okay, Fury Road maybe doesn't have the most complex story, and maybe it even gets a little silly midway through. So I was kind of interested to see what Miller would do with something a little more complex in that regard as well, if it was there.
yeah, and like to your point, it's for him as a career, it's incredible that Mad Max Fury Road, like who makes probably arguably their best movie at that age. I mean, it's insane. So to be, it's right to be anticipated for that follow up, whatever it is. So, I mean, like
And
kudos to him.
that's why I think it's kind of smart that he went completely, well, not completely a different direction, but it's very. Whereas Mad Max Fury Road is very driven and not very dialogue-y. This one's got like tons of narration, and it's like it's very different in that sense, and it's more slower paced, and it's more just like you just sink into the world and enjoy it for what it is. So, which I think is smart. I think when you have a movie that's that massive of a hit, if you try to copy that, that's gonna just fall flat. So, I like that he did it this way.
Just go somewhere completely different.
Yeah. Or at least do that, because he is going to do the same thing. Essentially, he's making Furiosa, the prequel. But
That's
it was
true.
nice that he middled that with a different type of movie. He's not making that kind of a not back to back, but he's not following another certain director who made a movie in 2009 and released a sequel this year. That's massive. So my number 4, and I'm excited to talk about this one. So my number 4, and I was debating where to put this, if I should put it higher, but it's Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which was semi-recently released on Netflix. And I don't know if I have to explain the plot too much. It's Pinocchio, except it's set in a fascist Italy. I think probably in the 1940s or what was it, World War I? Whenever Italy was the bad guys.
World War II, yeah.
World War II. Thank you, as a history buff. And it's set in that time frame, and it was one of the most moving movie experiences I've had all year. And put in the hands with Del Toro, who handles kind of mortality and death better than almost anyone, I think, especially if you've seen Pan's Labyrinth. I just love when he dives into that kind of theme, and I don't know Pinocchio too well, other than the Disney's version, and that one is arguably scarier because of the donkey scene with children. But this is definitely like I wouldn't show my kids this one either. I think this is, even though it's animated, it's very adult oriented, and I thought the voice actors were incredible. I don't know how you measure it, but I thought the person who played Geppetto was one of the old guys in Game of Thrones, which is very broad. But he plays like he's like old and scraggly. Oh, what the heck's his name?
That's what he was also. He was also Filch in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. I don't know.
William Bradley, I think is his name.
Yeah, I'm getting my houses mixed up in Game of Thrones. But he's so good as Geppetto. I mean, the pain he goes through, the stages of grief, it's just, he really is fantastic. And I will say, which is a bonus to me, maybe not other people, especially Solution in our Discord would say this is terrible, but it's a musical. And you have Ewan McGregor as Jiminy Cricket, even though he has I think he uses his middle name in this. But his voice is fantastic.
Right.
Right. I love Moulin Rouge. I mean, I think it's just like a feel good music movie I like to put in the background. And so he was in high form in this. I think one of the songs in this will be nominated for best song, which this year, which I think is going to be a wicked strong category in the Oscars if they pick, especially the next movie I'm choosing has a great song. But yeah, the detail in this animation is like unreal. It's stop motion or puppets, right? I think it's stop motion. I think that's what it'd be. Yeah. And it's just watching it, I was in awe, just looking at the faces and just thinking like how long this must have took and just the amount of, I don't want to sound corny, but love that. I mean, if they're doing this job, they have a love for this craft and it just shows so much. And it might be a tad too long. Even I hate that complaint unless movies are bad, but I was really moved by it. And I it's just weird with Netflix because like when we were growing up, you guys know when we went to the movies, critics reviewed it and you had it made this much at the box office. With Netflix, I don't know what the discussion is of this. I don't know how many people saw it. I don't know if it made an impact anywhere. If I'm the only one who just looking around like, hey, it's Pinocchio. Why is like I was thinking like this should be one of the 10 nominated for Best Picture. I was like, this is like a legit like, all right. And then I haven't heard anything about that. Just a few like, yeah, this is really good. And then they move on to the next week of movies. And I'm like, what? What's going on here?
That's the Netflix problem. There's definitely an issue with Netflix on that. Yeah.
Well, I
sometimes
definitely
they don't know what they have.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, that's what I find most irksome about that release style is just, this is a movie I was anticipating all year and I almost didn't even see it until like last week. Just because I had no idea it was out. Much like with Wendell and Wild. So yeah, I don't know. I appreciate the idea of giving people more opportunity to see stuff. I don't know if I always appreciate the not knowing an exact date on release.
Yeah. I mean, I say Netflix. I mean, streaming. I mean, Netflix is just the bigger one, but any streamer, like you just don't like, even if it was Apple Plus, TV Plus or whatever, I wouldn't like that Emancipation movie came out with Will Smith. I don't know if it made a dent. But yeah, Jingalls, I forgot you watched that. So you liked it, right? Pinocchio?
Oh, I love Pinocchio. Yeah. This was almost in my top 5. The only reason that really kept it down is because I do think those Pinocchio songs are a little just too ingrained in my head. And when I walked away from this one, while I loved it in the moment, I don't really remember any of the songs afterward.
Yeah. I mean, how dare you?
Yeah.
But that's fair.
I know. I'm sorry.
You're true. I don't either. Except I think Ciao Papa, I think is called, which I think is going to get nominated. But that one kind of stuck with me a little bit. But you're right. I can't remember the songs either. But I did like them at the time.
Yeah, love them. And I mean, there's some great stuff. I mean, with when they're, dealing with the whale. Hope that's not too spoilery, but when they deal with the whale, it's like just even watching the water, how it parts while the whale's moving through it is just so fun to watch. And Ewan McGregor is super charming in this movie as Jiminy Cricket or Sebastian Cricket, I think is what he actually goes by. Yeah, but this is a great movie.
Right on. Check it out, Ian.
I will. I just haven't really had the opportunity and the right mood, I guess. Like sometimes you just got to be in the right mood to watch a certain type of. And I just haven't had that. I was hoping to have a chance to watch that before this, but I just didn't. And then Christmas got in the way, so.
Yeah, not a Christmas movie.
No.
All right, let's get into our third round, you could say. Oh, all right, Jingalls. Let's revisit another movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so this is where I put Prey.
Nice.
And yeah, I'll save all the summary and stuff. But basically what I really loved about this movie, that it doesn't beat the first Predator for me quite yet. But what I did love about it was just Amber Midthunder's performance, and also kind of going back to that Most Dangerous Game aspect, where like the entire movie is spent with her actually learning and trying to figure out what she needs to do to be a hunter. And then we bring all of that back around in her final battle with the Predator, which I just really appreciated. I mean, even in the first movie, I don't know if we can really say that happens. Like these are like we were saying earlier, big buff military men who are just there to shoot guns, and it's presumed that they just know how to do a lot of the stuff that her character has to learn in the movie. So,
right. Yeah, that's a good point. The movie is very good at like setup and payoff. They're right. Like, yeah, you're right here. They're setting up the whole first movie. There's little moments that they'll tease, and then that will come back into it later. And yeah, Arnie doesn't have much of a character arc.
No.
but this character does. You're right. That's definitely something it has on top of the other movie. I will agree.
Yeah, and it's like we don't want to get to so we're not really doing spoilers this episode because we want people to be able to listen without having their movie spoiled, I guess. But I think it's similar in the fact, I'll just say we could spoil Predator a little bit. Like Arnie doesn't win or doesn't survive because he's yoked and he can put the Predator in a headlock. He uses his brain about the surroundings, about, to outsmart the Predator. And I think, I heard some people complain that it's ridiculous. Mid Hunter, the character in the new one kind of holding her own. And it's like, it's not about how big or small you are or what. It's about being an intelligent hunter, so to speak, and using everything to your advantage. And I thought this movie did that really well. Like you both said, kind of laying the clues in the beginning of the movie, or little stuff like that paid off at the end. That someone was that her character was paying attention to and used, like a good student would.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I think that's really all I have extra to add. But
it's good visual storytelling. It's very good at that.
Yeah,
right. Because there's not much dialogue. I mean, at least I don't remember there be much dialogue.
Just really between her and her brother.
Yeah.
Who again? Shout out, that guy was, he was pretty cool. Just on the surface level as a guy. That guy's, he knows what he's doing. All right, Ian. A little controversial at number 3, but
yeah, and I'm not going to say much about it, but my number 3 is Everything Everywhere All at Once, which came back back in March or April. It's been a while.
It's incredible how early that was.
A long time.
Yeah. So it's just I'm not going to say much about it. I think will say a few words here.
Yeah, go ahead.
We did a whole podcast on it, so
I know.
So it's a cool exploration of the multiverse, which has been all the rage these days with Spider-Man and with the Doctor Strange and everybody, Rick and Morty. So the multiverse is big. It's big. It's in right now, and this one does it very interesting. It grounds it in family drama. It's wacky, but also heartfelt. It's funny, it's tragic, it's all these things, and it's definitely one of the standout movies for a lot of people this year. And that's all I'll say right now.
Well, I think this might come back up on the episode once, possibly twice more.
It's possible.
That's possible.
I will just say it is nuts that it came out that early and it's like a legit Oscar contender for Best Picture, which I never would have guessed. I thought acting awards, I thought it could pull off, but it being a guaranteed Best Picture nominee and possibly winning, it's nuts to me, especially at the time of year. Something coming out that early never is competing, so it's pretty cool. All right, so so me, my turn. All right, so for my number 3, this is I call this fantasy. Maybe you might quibble with it, but I picked RRR. I believe it's a Tollywood movie, and I don't even know how to just describe this movie. It's about 2 guys. They're both kind of on opposite sides of the law. One is kind of a policeman for the monarchy in, I think, India. Pardon me if my geography is off. And another is kind of like this guy who is a protector of a tribe who hunts down lost children or whatever. He calls them a shepherd, and they're at ends. A young girl gets kidnapped by the white king and queen, a white family. And this guy's coming to get the child back. And the white rich family's like, hey, we need the most hardcore policeman to come get this guy, tell him, stop him. And essentially it turns into just a bromance where, a Romeo and Juliet for dudes who love to be best friends. And I've never seen a Tollywood movie where this movie's incredibly over the top. The set pieces are ridiculous. There's animals in slow motion with another guy jumping in the air, and he's not mauled to death. I think that's a family. Everyone else is, but he's not. And there's like jumping off bridges and twirling around and grabbing each other's arms like The Rock and Vin Diesel in Fast Five. I was like, that I loved it from that point. I was like, anytime someone does that kind of hand grip, I'm like, this is it for me. And I gave it like a 4.5 stars because it's just, we talked a little bit about it on Ian's podcast, Cinema in Seconds. You can check that out. But this kind of just not wink at the crowd where they're not afraid to be sentimental, and just go for it and not feel you have to wink at the camera at all or kind of snark or anything, have any in it. It's just two bros just grabbing hands, fighting for this, either against each other or the same side. And there's a scene that shows friendship in this movie by having a dance off at a wedding between each other and it's not a spoiler plot wise in any sense, but one of the guys gives up, essentially lets the other guy win without him knowing so he can have the glory and a dance off. And I cried. I was like, this is like an all-time moment for me. So if you're looking for like an epic movie and just really good, like romance, I just said like character, like these two characters are the most memorable characters I've seen this year. And I don't think that's nothing. I mean, that's even some of my favorite movies, I have trouble remembering just some of the character beats or moments or anything. And I don't know. They're just burned into my brain, what they look like, kind of how they sound, what they do together. And I wish I could put it higher, but I do think this was a really strong year for science fiction and fantasy. So there's tough contenders, but man, I'd recommend it to everyone. And, and just like Bong Joon-ho says, don't let a little mini words at the bottom of the screen stop you from experiencing so much of what film has to offer. And this is a really great example of that.
Just need to find 3.5 hours.
It's a long movie.
Yeah.
And the other issue is that it's hard to find it in its original language too, because the Netflix version actually isn't in the original language.
Did that bother you when you watched it?
Or the people that matters. It bothers me on like a superficial level, but in reality, like you're listening to one language you don't understand or another language you don't understand. Like I listened to it in Hindi, which was fine. I agree. This movie is a blast. Like it's insane. It's that dance scene that you were talking about. It's everybody should at least, if you don't have the 3+ hours to check this out, you should at least try to check out that scene because it is nuts. It's pretty cool. I didn't consider it because I just didn't really see it as. I don't care that you do. Like that's fine. I just see it more as exaggeration rather than fantasy, right? Like then you'd call like any kung fu movie like Kill Bill would be fantasy. Well, I don't know. Even the Fast and Furious movies, right? I kind of see it in the same. Although didn't somebody actually claim the Fast and Furious as a fantasy? So that was whatever.
That's our panda. That and last year she put "Don't Look Up"
fair.
as a fancy science fiction. So,
Which yeah.
But no, I knew this would be controversial, and I was ready for pushback. There's just so much like there's a bridge scene where I don't even think Tom Cruise could pull it off and do that stunt. It's like that's not, but like you said, that could fall definitely into exaggeration and or even just like the opening scene in this movie is like awesome. It's such a good character introduction where like that dude is nuts. Also totally fantastical. There's no way that person could do what he did, but in with a crowd of people. But it's so. No. That's the only reason why I decided I thought it was semi-fair to sneak it in, but it's definitely probably the least fantastical science fiction of all the ones we have, though.
Cool.
So yeah, Jingalls, watch it. Clear out 3.5 hours.
I will find it. I mean, that's what the time definitely doesn't deter me from watching a movie. Like the only thing is personal things have made it so 3 hours is a very restricting time. Like I saw Avatar because we had suspended operations at the school I work at, so that was like perfect timing.
Yeah, I found that as I got older, it's like, wow, 3-hour movies. I'm like, I really need to. I can't stay awake too long at night, so I need to call out of work essentially. But
This movie doesn't keep you awake though. That's there's something
yeah,
wrong.
that's right. That's right. All right, so we're gonna go to our number 2 picks, but this one I'm gonna combine because you both picked this movie for number 2. So whoever,
Right.
I'll just let you guys go. I'll let Jingles speak on it first a little bit, and then Ian, you can pop in and whatever. But yeah, you guys both picked this for number 2.
Yeah. That's what Nope directed by Jordan Peele, starring Kiki Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya and Stephen Yeun. I know this movie is everything I love about blockbusters, and plays off of them really well while also having like just a wild. I think it's pretty blatant in the animal rights angle, but also just has a discussion about the way the film industry treats its people that aren't actors. It's just a really interesting movie. I don't know if I want to spoil too much. Like even the trailer leaves most of this to be discovered in the movie.
Yeah.
Aliens are involved. There's that. So
Yeah, this is probably the one we're gonna have the toughest time talking around, but
Yes.
for sure. But we can do it. Yeah, I agree. The blockbuster elements here were fantastic. And like it was just a ride, right? You just sat down for this very entertaining movie, but like you mentioned, there's a core to it as well, right? It's very thematic at the same time. That exploitation theme is pretty strong throughout, but not in a way that like hinders it, in a way that enhances it. So good choice for number 2, James.
I agree. Well done, Ian.
Yeah, no, I'll talk about it. I had it at number 2, but I changed my mind. Rewatches are great. So, yeah, great job. I'll talk about my number 2 now, which was Ian's number 3, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I love this movie when I saw it. I loved it so much. I agreed to do an episode on this channel with like 7 people, which was not easy. But for me, I couldn't believe like the effects, special effects that we saw, that only 6 people worked on it for these special effects. It's nuts how good it looked for how kind of the gumshoe, was that a term? String of money they had? I don't know. But it was very cheap and they made it look like that. And I think when you compare it to something like on a Marvel movie, the Doctor Strange, it's just incredible that theirs kind of comes out. I think it's going back. If we look at this movie 10 years later, it's going to look much better than that did. And it deals with, I didn't know things with a raccoon could make me cry the way it did. And it just we talked about in that episode, but it blends such silly things with such intimate and personal feelings really well. And it's just not easy. Like that can always, and I don't think it always pulled it off in certain sections, but the fact that it did so much for so many people, and it has such a rabid fan base, for better or worse, which I try to stay away from. But it's clearly connecting with people, and that's again, to make something that outlandish connect with people of all ages, is really crazy. I mean, Oscar, the people who are in the Oscars or vote on this stuff, it's getting younger and more diverse, but it's a lot of old people, and they're connecting with that too. So that it just says something about that. It's such a broad movie when it shouldn't be. You know what I mean? And on top of that, just the actors. I mean, Michelle Yeoh and Ke-Huy Quan, I want the world for them. I mean, especially, I mean, you don't want to spoil anything, but his performance and some of the lines he has in this just like killed me. And it's been memed and they're on the internet, but I could watch some of his scenes like 100 times. And
Nice.
yeah, so I'll be rooting for it for the best picture. I'd root for my number 1, but I know it has no chance. But this one, I would like to see it win, because it'd be up there with like Parasite level, like surprise, like Parasite. That doesn't happen. Something like that winning in the Oscars. So if this one, that'd be the same feeling. So
Nice.
all right, So, Jingles. Well,
I
if you
guess,
want to add
yeah.
to that
I
conversation,
guess I should add to that. Yeah.
'cause this is your number one of all time.
This movie is just so amazing. Yeah. Everything you both have said so far, hits right on the money for me. I think not so much the raccoon sections, but like I was really enjoying this movie. And then we got to a certain point where characters are no longer animate objects. And I was just like, I don't know where this is going. This might have jumped the shark a little too much. And then I started crying because it's just so impactful. It does such a good job. And I don't think there's anything I can really say poorly about this movie. I think, Michelle Yeoh, Kui Kwan, they both do fantastic jobs, but the supporting cast are also just amazing. Even looking at like what Jamie Lee Curtis is doing in this movie versus like Halloween Ends later in the year, just so different, and so much fun to watch. Same with James Hong. He's actually shows up twice on my list. He's in Wendell and Wild. He's a fantastic actor and does a great job here as Michelle Yeoh's father. I don't know. It's just I've never walked out of a theater so happy as I was after watching this movie. Just absolute pleasure.
Are we doing a bottom 5 episode? Because I could fit Halloween Ends right at the top. If that's the case, I'd be more than happy to put that right there. It is weird. I agree with you, Jingles. Actually, I don't agree with you in this sense. I think Stephanie Hugh is so much better than Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm like shocked that she's getting like awards notice. Jamie Lee Curtis. I think she's fine.
Oh, really?
And weird.
Okay.
Well, I just like, why isn't Stephanie Hugh? I mean, she's arguably the best part of that movie. You could really say what she does in that movie and the different roles she has to play. I mean, right when she enters the film, it just lights it up in a certain role. Whereas Jamie Lee Curtis has a few scenes where she's kind of like disgusting, and I guess maybe I've actually both scenes she does is disgusting, both characters.
Yeah.
But, so I don't know. It just seems like one of those things where she's a big name, and of course she's going to get a little more attention. But like, it's just a shame that it comes at the expense of another actress who was, I thought, like up there with Michelle Yeoh and Kehu Kwan. Even though they're far, like to be able to do martial arts and give that dramatic performance, those two leads are like insane. That's why I think they're like. I hope one of them gets recognized because it's hard. I mean, not many people can do martial arts. I'm sorry. Like,
No,
you know, it's the same with like singing in movies. Like I hate Rami Malek got one when Bradley Cooper should have like actually sung. Like it's just, I don't understand why they don't award that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No, that was actually, that was totally my mistake not mentioning her. I would agree with you. Jamie Lee Curtis does not deserve over her, especially when we look at what this whole movie is about and the dynamics of parental role versus a child. And it just she backs up Michelle Yeoh wonderfully in doing that conversation.
For sure. And all right, so that's your number one. And like, man, it was. I'll just say it was tough. I had legit 3 options I could have picked as number 1 or 4. One that wasn't even on my list. I don't know how it didn't make my list. It could have been 1, and actually, it's Ian's number 1.
Oh yeah. So with my number 1, I was probably going to put Nope at number 1 for the longest time until when I finally saw James Cameron's Avatar 2 or Avatar: The Way of Water. And
people were like, where is this movie? Why hasn't anyone mentioned it?
I've made it a whole hour.
I wholeheartedly loved this movie. It was I think it's much stronger than the first Avatar. And I know the first Avatar has its people who love it and people who it has its detractors, and did ever since it came out. But this one's a little bit richer in story. There's more of a family dynamic, which works really well. And like visually, it's just stunning. The audio is amazing. The music is amazing. James Cameron clearly has a lot of passion for making these films, and it just comes through. And just sat there in awe at the theater. Like it was it was interesting because I went with my dad. I took my dad, and he was kind of, he's getting up there in age, and he was shuffling around in his seat and playing around with the 3D glasses and stuff. And I'm thinking, oh, I dragged him to a 3+ hour movie, and he's hating it. And I'm like, and then we got to the end of the movie, and the lights go on, and he just kind of sits there for a bit, and he looks at me, wow, did I enjoy that? And I was like, excellent. Like, yes, because so did I. And it's just such an event movie, and I feel like we don't get that much very more. Like when Force Awakens came out, that was an event movie, and then people became really jaded and cynical about those. And same with the Marvel movies, people become jaded and cynical, and those happen every few months anyway. But this really felt return to the event movie, and I just loved it. It's fantastic, and it quickly became my movie of the year.
Yep. Jingles, you saw this, right? You can explain
did.
yourself why you didn't put it in the top 5.
Why it's not here. Oh man, I can't disagree with anything Ian has said. I think for me, Avatar, even with its improved effects and everything, is still a little bit of a known quantity. Partially why I don't add Marvel usually to these top 5 lists either. It's just because I don't know. It's a great movie. I can't deny that. And
did you
the
not find
effects
that
are
the
stunning.
family? Did you not find that the family aspect added a little bit more to it, though?
Oh, I think it did. I prefer this movie to the first one, actually. I'm probably going to go see it twice in theaters, just because I think it's an experience that needs to be taken as many times as possible for that. I don't know. Yeti, why isn't it on your list?
I didn't mean to call you out because I also don't have it on my list. Well, first of all, I think you said it well. Like, I can't deny anything Ian said. And frankly, it probably should be on my list. I almost put it at the 5 spot, but it was still too fresh in my mind, whereas Duel I had watched a while ago, and it's still like, I still can't get her performance out of my head. But no, Avatar 2 was awesome, dude. I mean, if the last hour of that movie is the best thing I've seen all year. That last hour. It's the most memorable thing I've seen all year. It's the most emotional I've been and psyched up I've been. The way he crafts a set piece with digital, I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he did that last certain scene with, because I'm not going to say what it is, obviously, but there's water involved, obviously. It's called The Way of Water. And the way it looked was so good. I just don't understand how he pulled it off. I mean, the guy's a craftsman.
Yeah.
And the fact that he really relies on thematically kind of just common core concepts. I know it might sound cheesy, but family, I mean, I'll watch any movie that tells a family story really well. It doesn't have to. I hate criticisms about the first that's not original, or the cheap jokes about Fern Gully. It's like, every story is something. It's Romeo and Juliet. It's fine, but he tells these things with such emotional impact, and he sets it up. And yes, I do think parts of it are kind of like a screensaver, where there's just swimming with whales. That's cool. But like you said, when you're in the theater, it's an incredible experience. I could have watched, 15 more scenes of them riding horse fish, those fish things that could fly. So visually, I don't think it's just that. I think he knows how to thematically pay off what he sets up throughout the film, especially Jake's and Zoe Saldana's family. I mean, it's not a spoiler. They have kids in this movie, and particularly there's one. They have 2 sons, and the younger one is just it's just, I think he gives the best performance in the film. I do not know that actor's name. I'm going to watch him from now on, but it's just stuff you can all latch onto and you can relate to, like in any one of those performances, either as a parent or as a child, a middle child, or anything. That's just common struggles that families go through in a Pandora world with whales that are cool. Do I have qualms with it? I think there's a plot line with the villain in this story, and a character who has ridiculous hair that really was kind of a drag at times. That hairstyle never works. I mean, it was maybe an 8 Mile. I guess Eminem's friend has it. But I mean, it's just, so there's some stuff. It's not perfect. Like when I gush about this movie on Discord or anywhere, I'm not saying this is a perfect movie, but I'm saying the highs you feel from this, or the way that it ends, it's totally worth it. I mean, you're not, and I look forward to everyone criticizing this in like 2 months when the high dies down. The writing
Right.
the writing is atrocious, but every one of his movies have terrible writing. These people say "bro" 50 times. It's fine. It is
They
what
do.
it is. Jake gives terribly family speeches. It's fine. Go Sully family. I get it. It's terrible, but it's not it's not what you focus on in these films, and it never deters me from my enjoyment of them. Yeah, the first 4 on my list I definitely liked better than this as a whole, but the 5th one, it probably should be my 5th. But yeah, it's a great number 1. I mean, I hope everyone goes and sees this, and definitely in the theater. That's my only qualm about these movies, because I haven't rewatched Avatar. I don't know how they hold up on rewatches like at home, but as in the theater, amazing.
Yeah, I think there is something to the it's such a vast world and it's so detailed visually, right? But there is like this weird narrowing that's happening with the story in this one, particular to some characters that show up. I will say there's one actor or actress in this. I didn't realize who the actress was until the credits rolled, and I thought that was amazing.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I was just, hold on. What did I just watch? I need to go watch it again. There's sometimes where there's slipping up where it's like the age, you can tell the age doesn't quite match, but it's impressive regardless.
Well, that's one of the things that really worked for me, is the fact that the children characters, right? The kids are not just tacked on characters. And I really felt like I was connected to those at the end of that movie. Like they were a bigger part of the movie than the characters from the first movie. And I think that worked. I think that was a gamble that really paid off and connected me emotionally more to the movie.
Absolutely.
How many movies have we seen where there's kids play a prominent role and they drag it down? Either the kid actors just aren't good. It's hard to find kid actors. The kid in, Elliot and E.T., that is not normal for that kid to be such a good actor. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So to have this kind of performance from these kids and to be so attached the way he tells it and kind of leads you through the movie, experiencing things and events with these kids and just their dynamics with each other and with their parents. It's not easy. That you can't. I think sometimes it's just a given that you should feel the way you do at the end of this movie, but it's not true. I mean, it's just not many movies can do it. And I don't want to spoil things, but it's just really moving. That the last hour, I mean, I think you guys would agree. Like it's the reason why your dad said he liked that movie or loved that when he came out of it, because that last hour, it leaves you on a high. Like you're like, yeah, I remember when this came out, I was like, I don't know if I need many more movies in this world. I liked Avatar. That was cool. I wasn't like a fanboy. I was like, all right, that's fine. I'd like to see Jim Cameron do other stuff. Like I like True Lies, T2. When I finished this movie, I was like, you give me as many of these as you want, my friend. I was like, keep them coming.
I don't think we've seen a movie that can match the action sequences in that last hour. I don't think we've seen one in probably a decade. Maybe Avengers Endgame. That last hour maybe matches close. But even then, that's pretty narrow compared.
Yeah, with that, and a lot of Marvel movies, but particularly that one, that's just a lot of hype from what became before it because of who's introduced and things like that. But this is like the way you feel claustrophobic in this last hour. You feel on edge. Like it's like that meme or that picture where the guy's playing a video game and then it has the shadow of him going forward, like that. It's like that's how you feel throughout the movie. And like especially that part where like you're engaged in that last hour. And I love movies that do that. I just love when you just notice you're holding your breath and you forget to breathe and stuff like that.
Sweet.
All right. I think we did Avatar 2 justice. It was good.
I think so. Last year, you guys let me gush about Dune. This year, Avatar. Yeah.
That's a good back-to-back, my friend. Yeah, I'll end it with... so my number 1 was Nope. And I'll admit, I just did a rewatch of it. And... you can't talk really spoilers with this movie. But honestly, what it came down to for me, and Ian or Jingalls might have said it, it's just like the perfect blockbuster. I didn't think any of this movie didn't work. I thought from start to finish, there was not a part I did not like. I know that's a little controversial because there's kind of a flashback sequence throughout this movie. And I actually found that to be the best part of this movie. And what it was trying to say about, I think what it was trying to say about how it related to real world things. The themes of this movie really struck a chord, and I think Peele he just has a knack for going deeper in just surface level stuff. Not to sound too pretentious. I mean, everyone tries to do that, and he's not the only director that can do that. But he's just very poignant with where either the world's going or anything that like Get Out. I mean, that's stuff that's still on the mind. What he's really talking about is still relevant today. So just a lot of things about what we do for views or entertainment purposes and profiteering off that stuff. It's really powerful how he mixed that in with the just disturbing flashback of not too much spoilers, but of a kids 90s like Full House type of show, to mix that in with, as you say, if you've seen the commercials and stuff, kind of like a UFO centered movie. And Keke Palmer is electric in this movie. I thought her and Daniel Kaluuya are like, again, this is I don't understand why the Oscars don't nominate like roles like this. Like Daniel Kaluuya is doing this soft, like quiet performance that's just so powerful. I mean, you can't take your eyes off him. I think he's one of these actors where he just does so much with his eyes and does so much without speaking, which not many people can do. I mean, we're going back to, Newman could do that, where you're just looking at his eyes and Paul Newman, where he wouldn't even have to say anything and you could tell Brando. So I just couldn't get enough of those two. And the way kind of Peele leads you onto what's happening in the movie, you feel like one thing is happening. And then there's even like an alien scene in a barn, which is so creepy. And it's actually has nothing to do with what's really going on in the events of the movie. It's a nice little fake out. But he still has this like creepy, like you're on the edge of your seat, like scared. And then that's just like a throwaway thing. So I don't know. I don't think Peele's the king of horror. I don't think he thinks that. That's nice clickbait stuff. But for me, he's 3 for 3. And I think this is far and away the best movie of the year. But it's a good year too. So it's not, and it's not just horror. I mean, I think you guys would agree. There's like Spielberg in here. Not totally.
Oh
but
yeah,
he's definitely taking from him.
The love of Jaws is definitely worn
Yeah.
clear on the sleeve here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And just the sense of wonder sometimes, it definitely gets more horror focused in certain scenes, but the sense of wonder, like there's a scene where someone's giving a show outdoors and they're waiting for this wondrous event to happen. I mean, he's really kind of taking from his masters, the people that influenced him. And it's just, it's incredible. Even if you don't like horror, I'd say to watch this.
Yeah. Even the focus on little details or on interesting visuals or interesting ideas, because I remember when I went to go see this, I'm not going to go. I don't want to see that. Well, that's fine. But then she says, but when you see it, you have to tell me what's the deal with those car salesman wacky guys, because those are all over the marketing, right? And I'm like, okay, well, they'll probably just show up somewhere. But no, they actually play a really cool, interesting role in the movie. And I actually had something cool, like a cool tidbit to come back with her and say, actually, the reason that those were so prominent is a really cool reason. I'm not going to say why, because that gets into spoilers, but it's great when a movie can take interesting concepts like that and just make them something unique.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Jingalls.
Oh, I was just kind of changing over to just to gush about Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer together in this movie as, again, that Spielbergian family tie. You might not have everyone there with you, but you do have who you have. And Daniel Kaluuya pays, I mean, on paper, this guy just is very simple, probably shouldn't be that endearing to watch, but he is, and Keke Palmer is a big part of that in just being the energy of the whole movie.
Right.
So and I just love they have the tube man plan that, what does that mean? And then it plays such an integral role, and it's when they start thinking about the things together that it starts to play out well.
Yeah, I mean, you guys both nailed it. I think together, like separately, they're not as dynamic, but when you put those two characters, the brother and sister, together, it's just like a perfect yin yang, and it really makes the movie sing. And to like Ian's point, the visuals. I mean, I think brought it up before, Ian, maybe just chatting about it, like this image of a shoe just standing up on its toe, or without anything on it. It's just striking, and obviously it means there's deeper meaning to it. But just those visuals, I mean, Peele can really zoom in on it. Even yeah, it's kind of spoiling the beginning, but someone slouching off their horse. It's in the trailer. Like that's visually, it's just the way it's shot. And then of the UFO, I guess you see in the trailer, there's just some incredible shots that is like horrifying. And I don't know. Again, like when front to bottom, I think this is just the best movie of the year for me. I didn't have a lull in it, but again, there's a certain flashback portion that I think it's a little divisive. I think it's just tough to understand. Definitely a first watch why it's being used. But
I'm with you. I loved it. I loved the fact, so I'm on your side.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I don't think it's surprising that our top threes all got pretty homogenous at the end there. Like this movie stands out as definitely one of the greats of the year.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was like, our top threes were pretty. I mean, listen, Avatar 2, everything. I know me and Jingalls loved Avatar 2 too. So I was like, oh wait, all these movies we're just gonna go back and forth gushing about because it's like it's just really good. I think this was a low key, really exciting year for film. In a year which not a lot came out, but at least for science fiction and fantasy, we got a lot of great options.
True.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, that's our top 5. I hope people like that. So I'll start with Ian. Is there any you wanted to shout out that honorable mentions that were close to your list but didn't quite make it? Like Black Adam.
Honestly, no. My 5 was pretty set. I think I might just mention that. I mean, this wasn't a TV podcast, but boy, fantasy and sci-fi TV was on fire this year. And there's like a couple that I loved. I loved House of the Dragon. Stranger Things came back with a vengeance this year. This new Star Trek, Strange New Worlds. And then Apple had that Severance TV show. If you're looking for like wild, weird concepts, check that one out. I'll just mention those TV shows that I actually thought were just awesome.
Yeah. I will give a very enthusiastic second to Strange New Worlds. That show was fantastic.
All right. Well, first of all, Ian, how dare you? This is a movie podcast. You should know better than anyone. We're trying to save film here. If Green Team wants to have a TV episode, they can have their own TV. Film is the superior viewing experience. Anyone who says otherwise.
All right, I've been properly
yes,
you can edit that.
Yeah. No, it's in there. It's a true. You were factual. There's just way too. I mean, that's the platform that has really all the great I'm not going to say content, but just lets creators do, that isn't relying on IP. TV is the place to go where you can tell exciting stories in any genre, but specifically fantasy and sci-fi. That's why, like in movies, I feel like it's so special that we get stuff like this, like in Everything Everywhere at Once, or Duel, or or Wendell and Wild, stuff that to see it come out, it's precious because usually it's TV. And for someone who likes theaters and just sitting down, getting a full top to bottom story in 2 hours or 3.5 hours, I appreciate it. But no, that's fair. I mean, I love Stranger Things too. All right, Jingalls, do you have some honorable mentions?
Yeah, just 2 really quick ones. Like I said, I didn't put any top 5 for my Marvel stuff, but I think anyone who loves film, especially old film, should give Werewolf by Night a look because it was just a ton of fun. It's short, doesn't take a lot of your time, and it's accessible on Disney Plus already because it only came out there. So definitely give that. And then this one was kind of I don't know if it's actually fantasy, but I really enjoyed it. Was Barbarian, which just solely based on the trailer, you would think that this is a horror movie about a woman who ends up sharing a Airbnb with someone that she doesn't know. And I think your mind can kind of already start thinking about where that horror movie might go. And then this one just totally derails that idea. And it was just a fantastic watch. It gets maybe a little too carried away in the end, but I had a lot of fun with this one.
Yeah. Barbarian was like one of the most insane experiences I had watching a movie this year. I went in completely blind and me and Emma, our legs were like shaking walking out. It's like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
Did you see this, Ian? I think you did, right?
Yeah, I like the build up. I like the suspense. Got a little gross for me.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's fair.
And also, I didn't put it on my list because I don't think it holds up as well on rewatch, or I don't think it would. Once you know it's coming.
Interesting.
Actually, we did
Yeah.
rewatch it, and I liked it, but I think there's a certain character who comes in halfway who's like super funny, and that still works.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like when you first watch it, you're really kind of on edge in that beginning scene, those beginning scenes, because you're like, I don't know what's going on. You know, like there's something not right here. Whereas when you kind of know that, it's kind of
Yeah. Sorry, I will say how that character gets himself into the predicament he gets himself, like that happens is great. Like
It is.
loved it.
Yeah.
All right, so I have a bunch. I'll try to limit it to like big ones, but there's one that I wanted to put on my list, but to Ian's point, didn't come out till a while ago, and I feel like we're definitely going to get backlash for not putting it on. So Matt Reeves, the Batman, what didn't make my list, but
I'm okay with it not being there.
Yeah, I don't know. I needed a rewatch. I tried to get it in, I just couldn't. But I remember when I watched it. Oh yeah, I can't remember if you liked it as much as I did, Ian, or not. But I thought this was fantastic. It was kind of slow, but for a first time watch, I didn't mind. I was like, I love this detective type of story. Like slow burn it all you want. I love Paul Dano's performance and just the kind of the way that it was not like 90% Batman, 10% Bruce Wayne actually really worked for me. But I don't know. It's a Batman movie, and I just there's been better Batman movies, as we talked about, Ian, in my opinion. So I didn't make my list, but I do think it's one of the better ones of the year.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of fun. It's one of those movies I saw it, and then I just haven't really had a desire to go back to it. I don't know. I probably would eventually, but a lot of the comic book movies I usually only watch once, and then I'm kind of done with them. So,
right.
It was a solidly made movie.
Yeah. Well, so there's a bunch of animated movies I really like this year. I think a big miss that maybe we didn't talk about so Turning Red, I think kind of got shunned to Disney Plus. But I thought that was I don't know if that's Pixar or Disney. Embarrassment.
That was a Pixar.
Yeah, Pixar. Yeah. So I think that was one of their strongest outputs in recent memory. I thought that was really kind of moving tale about adolescence, and especially someone having a young daughter. I kind of appreciated it and also dreaded where I'm going to have to be a parent in some spots as a young daughter. But I thought that was a really fun movie. The pandas were adorable. Sonic 2, I thought was pretty awesome for IP movie about Sonic. It's definitely kind of following a Marvel storyline in their setups with some after credit scene stuff. But I think James Marsden's like actually a funny actor, and I weirdly don't know why he's not in more stuff. But that's a big movie with kids and 34-year-old adult. This is a big one. This one I almost put in, and I can't get enough of it. So the Chip and Dale movie released on Disney Plus. And it's definitely the spiritual successor to Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I don't think it's as innovative or good, obviously, but if you like Lonely Island humor, if you like John Mulaney and just I think it did a lot of IP work, like cameos from other IP. I think they did it in a not cash grabby way, whereas like something like Space Jam did. They weren't just popping up to say, "Oh, look who it is! Look who it is!" Like there's a character, talking about Sonic, there's a version of that never even made it to film that is in there for that has a story beat point, that actually plays part of the plot. So I thought that movie was going to be garbage, and it honestly surprised me. And what do we think about the Weird Al biopic? Fiction or fantasy or non-fiction?
I still haven't seen it. I need to get to that.
Ian?
It did a lot of interesting things, but I would not have put it on a sci-fi fantasy list. Again, it's exaggeration.
Okay, exaggeration. Anyway, a shout out to Weird Al.
It's what you would expect a Weird Al biopic to be. We'll say that.
Yeah. And I think Ian, you said number 6 on your list was Jurassic World Dominion, right? Was that true?
Yeah, love it. Fantastic. No, it was. I would not include that on any list of any. Actually, that's not true. I did include it in one list this year, but not the one it wants to be on.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that'll do it. Does anyone want to add anything else, or we feel good? Any anticipated releases next year?
Oh man, what's coming out next year?
Across the Spider-Verse.
Guardians of Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I'm looking forward to. I think that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'll be a good. Same with Across the Spider-Verse. I'm looking forward to both of those.
Yeah.
Oh, Dune. Dune.
Is Dune next year?
Dune
Yeah,
2.
part
Yep.
2 next year. Like October, November. I can't remember when, but
Yeah, it'll be Oscar
That's gonna be great.
prime. Yeah, definitely November. That's coming for the Oscars. Well, it already took them last year, but it's coming for the big stuff that next year. Best Picture, Best Director.
That's what. There's a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that's coming out that I'm actually interested in seeing. What they do there.
It's like Seth Rogen producing.
The Seth Rogen one. Yeah.
Well, my bottom 5 had Rise of the TMNT from this year. I think I just aged out of that type of. I think I'm just too attached to the 1990 version because this one they have like metal on, and I was like, oh, what's going on here? I think I'm old man yelling at the cloud about Ninja Turtle cartoons now.
Back Commander.
Not mine. It's Donatello.
I know Panda's probably looking really forward to Rise of the Beasts, the new Transformers movie.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Me too.
I actually, I'll see that one. Beast Wars is where my heart lies with Transformers, so that's.
All right, well, let's sign off. Thank you guys for doing this, and remember, go check out the Legendarium Discord. We have a great community there, and it's really fun to talk shop, movies, books, everything with all these guys. So you can join in on the fun. Thank you, Craig, for letting us do this. Thank you, Horizon Brave, for starting this. And I'm Yettibeats for Ian and Jingalls. We'll see you later.
Bye.
See ya.